Hey, welcome back. Female Bacon here, and wanted to just make something a little different here with this video, just because there has been so much discussion and what I consider to be interesting discourse over this last, what has it been, 4 days, 5 days? When did they announce the Game Awards nominees? Monday, I think it was. So 4 days since we know who is formally and officially nominated as our Game Awards votes this year. And I gotta say, the reaction to it has been very interesting for me. I'll be honest, I don't think I really started following the Game Awards until 2019 when Sekiro won. That was a big one for me. I remember being super freaking pumped about Sekiro winning. I honestly didn't really even have an understanding of what the Game Awards was, who was running it. I just, tuned in at some point and was like, yeah, I'm rooting for Sekiro. That was definitely my game of the year that year, and they won, and I was probably, kind of hooked on the awards show following that, to be completely honest with you. No better way for me to get into an award show than seeing a From Software game take home the big award. So I think that's kind of relevant to this year's discussion in particular, because here we are again. FromSoft is at the top of the pile, the top of the heap for potentially winning a Game of the Year award category. And yeah, I'm not here to debate whether it should or shouldn't or anything like that. I could go on and on about the merits of Shadow of the Erdtree. I think it's an amazing DLC. I kind of wanted to take a different stab at the topic here myself, to be completely honest. Because generally most of the discussion around it I've seen is basically just that DLC should not be nominated as a Game of the Year award winner. And I'll be honest with you, that, for whatever reason, just deep inside of myself, that just does not seem to sit super well with me. And I don't know exactly why, but I've had to kind of reflect on that and think to myself, well, what is it about that opinion that I just don't inherently agree with? And because I'm certainly not I'm not gonna sit here and go on a crusade against having a DLC category specifically for these types of situations. In fact, I would actually agree. I would say having a DLC specific category probably is a good thing. I think that's a lot freaking better category than some of the other bizarre categories that they put into the overall thing. Like, one of the things that drives me crazy, we have best indie game and best debut indie game. Now, look, I love indie games. I got to imagine there's got to be, I don't know, a better way to do it, maybe? Like, and I this may or may not be a good. I'm just literally coming up with this off the top of my head here, but why not have best indie game and then best indie developer or something like that, right? Or I don't know what it is, but I just feel like you could be more creative in your approach to that. But whatever, that's completely beside the point that I'm making here. I think ultimately, when I really think about it, I think there's a few issues with. Or a couple issues, I should say, with just saying that DLC should not be nominated Game of the Year. And one, I just can't help but thinking of the example, and that you could pick any game like this. It could be whatever your favorite live service game is, doesn't matter. The one that constantly comes to my mind as being a big one is World of Warcraft. Okay, this is just a very, very broad example. And, again, take your favorite ongoing live service game that's been around forever. Just imagine for a second that a game like World of Warcraft, right? We know that game's going to be going on for a good long time. Still has a huge player base, still super popular for people to watch streams and whatnot of World of Warcraft. We know there's potential down the road. I don't think this is going to happen, but it's a possibility in some bizarre timeline and future. There's weirder things that have happened in our life and in our existence. It's possible that at some point an expansion for World of Warcraft could come out and it could completely revitalize the genre, right? It could totally bring in a whole whack of people back into the MMO genre. It could revitalize the game of World of Warcraft, and who knows? Maybe in 10 years down the road or something, we'll see some weird version or some DLC or World of Warcraft 2.0 or whatever the heck you want to call it. We'll just see it go crazy, right? And that will all of a sudden be people's game of the year. Is that likely? No, it's not likely at all. Is that going to happen? Probably not ever. But I just want you to imagine, just we're using this as a hypothetical scenario to test the idea or the hypothesis that there should be a DLC category. Okay. Because what I think happens here, it's not so much that there should be a DLC category. That's not what people are actually suggesting. The insinuation when people are saying that they want a DLC category specifically, what they're actually meaning to say is that the existence of a DLC category should exclude DLCs from winning Game of the Year. That's a little caveat that people are forgetting to add in there. Now, I looked on the Game Awards website. I personally could not find anything myself in terms of what is the criteria for deciding what is Game of the Year. Like, what is Game of the Year? And I know a lot of people will, it's got to be the best of everything. It's got to be the best visuals, the best music, the best gameplay, the best story. I completely disagree with that thought process myself. I played many, many, many video games over the years. When I'm thinking about my game of the year, and whatever, I'll just use this year as an example. My two favorite games this year specifically have been Metaphor ReFantazio and Balatro. Those have been my two favorite games of the year. And it's not because they have necessarily the best in all categories. It's just because they've had an impact on me. They've resonated with me. I can think back to, Balatro is a really good example of this. There's been many nights over the last few months just lying in bed, staying up late, way later than I should have, being tired for work the next day because I've been on my mobile phone, just playing my next run of Balatro. And that's just been like a super engaging, really fun experience for me playing that game on my mobile, lying in bed and 1 a.m. when I should be sleeping. That to me is like the hallmark of what a good game is. What is a good game? It's a game that you engage with, that speaks to you, that hooks you, that makes you want to return to it and keep playing. I don't really believe in this perfect game. I've never played a perfect game before, but when the pieces come together, you just know it and it works for you. That to me is what Game of the Year is. And it's completely subjective. It's a totally ridiculous thing. And that's another thing. I don't want to sit here and defend the Game Awards. I mean, look, it's everybody's favorite video game commercial. That's basically what it is. Let's be honest, right? We all know it. It's a big opportunity for advertisers to come out, showcase the newest trailers. What's the most exciting part about the Game Awards? It's not who wins the Game of the Year. It's seeing all the new video game trailers, right? So I just think this idea that creating a separate DLC category for DLCs or expansions, that's actually not going to change anything. It's not going to fix anything at all, because there would still be no rule that excludes it from being a Game of the Year. It could just like, again, go back to the indie category. Right now, as it is, as the rules are today, as they exist, a game could be an indie Game of the Year. It could also be Game of the Year. Look at Balatro. Balatro is nominated in both those categories. So what exactly are we talking about when we say creating a DLC category? If a game can be Indie Game of the Year and Game of the Year, or Action Adventure Game of the Year and Game of the Year, or RPG Game of the Year, or whatever. Take your pick. These games all exist in multiple simultaneous categories. It's probably one of the biggest flaws of the Game Awards selection process. I'd say this year, I don't know if I'm crazy or not, but I'd have to look back at previous years. But I feel like this year in particular, for some reason, has the least variety in these categories, which is really weird because we still got a ton of good games. All you have to do is look a little bit outside of your, kind of popularity contest bubble to realize all of these great games. Like, I'll give you a really good example. Where the hell is Another Crab's Treasure? Another Crab's Treasure was easily one of the best indie games that came out this year. I feel like it should have been nominated for something, debut, or I don't know. I think it was nominated maybe for a community award or something like that. I think I saw an X post or whatever, Twitter, whatever the hell you want to call it, tweet by the developer saying they got nominated for that category. I think I saw something like that. So, anyway, my point is, just because Shadow of the Erdtree, or let's just say Shadow of the Erdtree got nominated in the DLC category, that would not preclude it from being Game of the Year. And this is where we're getting off track. What everybody is actually asking for is they want a stringent rule in place to say that DLCs and expansions and add-ons to existing video games that have already been released are not eligible for the Game of the Year category. That's actually what people are saying they want. But I don't think they are thinking this through when they're saying it, I'll be honest. Because, again, what happens if, I don't know, Fortnite ends up being everybody's Game of the Year 3 years or 5 years down the road, and we have that rule in place? Well, then it wins Best Ongoing Game. It can never, ever win Game of the Year, regardless of its impact, its size, its relevancy, how well it does, how much people love it. If the whole entire gaming community came out as strong as they are right now against Shadow of the Erdtree, and they came out in favor of, I don't know, Fortnite or World of Warcraft or something like that 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, said, I can't believe this didn't get nominated for Game of the Year. It totally changed everything about the landscape of gaming. You're telling me you want them to implement a rule that would change that? I don't know. I'm not sure if that's an effective rule or an effective way to go by it. Now, I don't have the solution. I'm not going to pretend to have the solution at all here. I'm just saying that when people are asking or demanding of Jeff Keighley to create a DLC category for Shadow of the Erdtree, what they're actually wanting, they don't want a DLC category. They want clear, concise rules that say that DLCs and expansions cannot be eligible for Game of the Year. That's what they're actually saying. And that also in and of itself is kind of just a slippery slope. I think Shadow of the Erdtree is kind of a great example of that. We're talking about a DLC that came out this year that, blew everybody away. It took the world by storm once again. It completely reinvigorated a conversation around Elden Ring. Not that it needed much reinvigorating, to be honest with you. It's only been a couple years since the release of Elden Ring, but the fact that it was able to bring it so strongly back into the mainstream discourse of video games and get everybody interested in the game again. And the quality of the quality of the DLC is incredible. Now, I still probably personally, my favorite DLC is still probably Old Hunters. There's something about the way they wrap up the story in Old Hunters, whatever. Different story. I don't want to go off on a tangent here. That's probably still, when I think about my favorite personal From Software DLCs, I love the Old Hunters. That's, good chance that's always going to be my favorite. But Shadow of the Erdtree, I could totally see, especially for all of the new people that came in with Elden Ring and got invested in the franchise. That's probably going to be their favorite From Software game, probably for a good long time, if not forever. So I could see how important and impactful a DLC like Shadow of the Erdtree would be for those people. It scored ridiculously well. It's far and beyond anything that we would ever expect from most video game companies for releasing an expansion today. It is literally its own game. It is like, it's almost like it's not a different game, but it is really, it could be released as like a whole separate thing altogether, basically, you know. I've heard some arguments that some I like, some I don't like. Some people have said that, well, Elden Ring is not a game. It's not a game. It's a DLC. Okay, that's what a dumbass argument. That's so stupid. That makes no sense. What do you mean it's not a game? Sorry, look up the definition of video game. This is a video game. Hello. I'm playing the game, guys. Look at this. Look at this. See? I'm rolling around. I'm doing the thing. I got my sword. Okay. Guys, it's a game. Okay. Like, I don't want to, it's such a stupid argument. Okay. Come up with a more original argument. Seriously. It's so stupid. Now, the one argument that I heard or have read many times, I think it is valid, is that you have to own the base game of Elden Ring and play for a good chunk of time and actually get pretty damn good at the game to access the DLC properly. And I do think that actually is pretty legitimate. I mean, you have to beat Moog, right? The hard Moog, not the fake Moog in the sewer, the hard Moog, you know, the Lord of Blood Moog, to actually access the DLC. I do think that is a totally valid argument where you could say, okay, there is a barrier to entry, but then that gets into other weird conversations around barrier to entries to DLCs and Game of the Year. And I mean, you could go down that rabbit hole in a million different ways. Well, price might be a barrier to entry. Maybe the fact that it doesn't run on your computer because the specs are too high for the game and it doesn't run very well. Like, you know, there's many different arguments you could make for barrier to entry. And again, I'm not sure that the strongest argument saying that you have to play the base game for X number of hours before accessing the DLC is, again, you know, it's a valid argument. I don't know if it's the strongest argument, but I do recognize it's totally valid, and I think there's a conversation to be had there for sure. If I go back to, you know, the World of Warcraft example, I mean, when a new World of Warcraft expansion comes out, you just buy the expansion. You can start literally just boom in the expansion. It's not too hard, right? So if we're using those comparisons. So anyways, those are my thoughts. That's really what I wanted to say about this. I wish the conversation would revolve a bit more around the practical logistical methods in how Jeff Keighley and the Game Awards would actually implement something like this in a way that would be fair to all developers, to the fan base. You know, it's really hard. It's really hard to balance all that stuff. I don't have a clear answer on it, but I'm just making, hey, look, if you want a DLC category that excludes these games from Game of the Year, you know, you get what you wish for sometimes with that kind of stuff. And I just wonder in the long term if that's really a solution. Is that really the best way to go? I kind of just inherently, like, there's something in me that just says inherently, no, that's not quite the right way to go. It's the right, you're on the right track. It's not the wrong way to think, but I think that needs to be considered a bit more. There needs to be a bit more nuance behind that thought process. And if anything, I think there's a positive here too, actually. And you know, last point here I'll mention. People have been complaining for years and years and years about developers putting out shoddy products, right? Especially AAA developers, right? Putting out crap product. Here is an opportunity to celebrate a developer that put out something that not only expands upon existing content, but absolutely 100% delivered on expectations. You cannot tell me that Shadow of the Erdtree did not absolutely blow away expectations with what it did. I know not everybody loved it, but like 99% of people freaking loved it. Okay, so give me a break. I don't want to hear it. I know you naysayers are going to be like, it wasn't that good of a DLC. Shut your mouth, okay? Tell me, show me a better DLC. Well, I mean, there's better DLC. I'm sure there is. But, you know, just go down the list. There isn't that many, okay? You can't have this massive long line of DLC that you can show me that you're going to go, this is way better. This is way, no. Okay. When we're talking about DLCs for video games, Shadow of the Erdtree's like, pretty high up on the top of that pile. So let's be realistic here. Okay. I don't want to hear it. Anyway, I go on about this forever. Let me know your thoughts. I'm very curious. I think I do think this is an important conversation to have. I think it's important to acknowledge the work that From Software has done. We don't have a DLC category. That's the reality. So I think you could just as easily apply it must be an original IP that came out this year to any other category. Why not apply that to the RPG of the year? It's the same argument. It's the same logic. So yes, we need a DLC category? Probably, but we also need to think about the eligibility criteria to actually be Game of the Year. Do we even need a Game of the Year award? I don't know. Maybe not. Anyway, thanks for checking it out. Appreciate it. These are just some of my thoughts, and I look forward to hearing from you. Take it easy.